So our next meeting will be December 15th. And that'll be the last one for 2020, which is crazy. This year's kind of going by. As y'all got that email saying that they're going to decommission Skype, which I guess is today. Probably notice it tomorrow. Our use of Microsoft Teams is more important, especially in support for you guys. We're going to use that, and I got a couple slides in here on what to do with that. You know, how to get to it. I don't know. A lot of people, some people's taking classes with us, and they know how to use Teams, and that's cool. But for people that don't work with Teams at all, you just go to that Start menu, and then you scroll down to the M section where you see Microsoft, and there's the Microsoft Teams app. Okay, so that's how you open it up if you don't have it open. Then once it's opened up, you'll want to go to that Chat tab on the left, as you can see, and then you'll go into the search field and type in whoever you want to get a hold of's first name. And you can see Shannon goes by Michael, so you'd have to type Michael. And I wanted to get that out there so that when you type Shannon, it is not going to come up. So type in Michael.
Thank you.
Bring it in.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. And for me, they go by William in there, so you'd have to type that. But don't worry about that one. Then after you've got a hold of somebody, or you want to talk to them or whatever, you could do a couple other things with it. And the icon's up in the upper right-hand corner. You can turn on your video so they can see you. You can call over Teams. So if you wanted to call somebody, talk to them, as long as you got a headset, or if you're using a laptop that has a microphone to it, you can do these features. If not, then just call our work numbers, and you'll use that last icon to share your screen. So you'll look us up in there, or we'll look you up once you contact us, and we'll go from there. So you can share your screen that way. And this will be the new way that we do our support. So I just wanted to get those out there, the slides out there. This will be on the blog so people can go back and look at it later. Class schedule, we have no instructor-led classes at this point in time. Online classes are still available for Concept Station, Intro to MoDOT Hydrology and Hydraulics, Power Geopak Microstation Fundamentals, and a Power Geopak Road 1 class out there. So go to MoDOT.U and you can find those. Or if you wanted to find the videos and the class files and all the stuff that you want to work with, again, I talked about this last WebEx, but I'm going to say it again. In ProjectWise, if you go to the CAD Standards folder, where you always go to create brand new files, which we all like to do, under there's a standard plans CAD EPG data links, and those links point to our SharePoint page, which is this page right here over on the right, and our Power Geopak blog. And there's other stuff in there that you might want to look at, but it's just that simple. If you've got ProjectWise open, you can click that, or you can go to do it through the web anyway. Okay, so that's CAD web pages, and that brings, I'm done. And this is kind of exciting for me. I don't have much to talk about this time. Just go over those couple things there. And now I'm going to turn it over to Chris Schwantner, who has some words of enlightenment for us. So let me make him the presenter. And then Chris, you can take over.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
You are welcome.
Looking okay?
Looks
perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Better than what Bill was showing.
Awesome.
Thanks, Shannon.
All right. So as you probably know, you probably got one of my emails, maybe two emails this past week. We are going to be transitioning from a on-premise ProjectWise environment to a hosted ProjectWise. And that's going to occur over this coming up weekend. So ProjectWise won't be available during this time period, as you can see, from 5 o'clock on this Friday all the way until midnight on Sunday. At that point, we're going to be taking all the files and everything that's on all the servers that's in ProjectWise and migrate that to the cloud. So on Monday morning, if everything goes good, everything should be exactly the way that you leave on Friday, except we're going to be hosted the Bentley side in the cloud. So, go to the next slide. Some things that I sent out recently had to do with the Software Center updates. We had to upgrade a couple of our applications in order for the hosting environment to work correctly. We upgraded our ProjectWise to version 280 for 64-bit machines, and this was to kind of handle a item that they have on servers nowadays that they use a UTC time frame, which is really 6 hours time difference from us. So if we created a file at noon in ProjectWise without this version, it would show up that we worked on the file at 6 p.m. So there's a 6-hour time frame difference. So that's kind of one of the important reasons why we actually went up to that version 280. And that's actually the version that we actually have on the hosted environment. Those of you that have 32-bit machines, which is really only the ones that have this, are the ones that are in construction. And I'm not sure the numbers. They cannot be upgraded due to the ProjectWise the newer version of ProjectWise can't work on a 32-bit machine. So they will not get upgraded. Once they get upgraded to 64-bit, then they will be upgraded to the 280 version. The update also included the new connection client, which is 19.31. It has the new licensing capabilities in there that we're going to be using. If by chance you do not get this upgraded, everything still works. However, you would have issues with the time frame being a little bit different. We also rolled out Power Geopak SS10, the 9.18 version. If you downloaded this and it's running on your machine, it requires you to actually use the connection client. If you do not sign in with the connection client, that version of Power Geopak does not work. It just stops. It looks like it's going to do something, and it just never actually opens up. And this is kind of goes along with Bentley's new licensing method that they're using. They're using the connection client to kind of give you the entitlements, and that's how you get the licenses from now on. Something about the hosted ProjectWise environment. It is going to be hosted on the ProjectWise site by Bentley. Right now, we have about 2.9 million files in ProjectWise, and it takes up about 3.2 terabytes worth of disk space, and that's all going to be pushed into the cloud. I'm already doing that now as we're talking. I'm actually updating the servers out there, so they actually have the newest versions out there that we're working with. So the way that it works when you're actually in the host environment is that the files actually do not exist on the servers in the district. It actually will be in the cloud. So when you open or check out a file, those files are actually downloaded to your local machine, just like you normally would if you had it, if we were on the premise ProjectWise. And that is one of the reasons why one of the changes I made last week was to activate the caching settings on your machine. This allowed the files to be kept and left on your machine and not purged when you leave the file. This ensures that speed is maintained, especially nowadays since we're kind of working from home. So the files are actually local at this point and will stay local and will not be discarded. So that's a real good kind of nice feature. I also say do not purge or delete your local working files. At this point, do not do that. We want to make sure that the files that you're working with reside on your local machine. There may be a time that you may need to purge one file or two files, but just don't do a blanket to purge everything. Before we move on Friday, before you leave, make sure all your files are checked in so that everything is updated so I can get the last and greatest versions. So why are we going to do this? Why are we doing to the hosted environment? First, that we get better support for our application and better maintenance. Right now, our servers are being controlled by OA, and in order for us to do changes and upgrades, it's very time-consuming trying to get everybody all the ducks lined in a row. it seems a lot better that we go with OA, or not with OA, with Bentley, because they can actually upgrade us quite easily to the next releases. So that's pretty good. The thing that we're going to be working on after we migrate to the hosted is that we're going to actually create some caching servers, which actually will speed up the process. So what will happen is that when you check out a file after where the caching servers are defined in those regions, in the districts, that an extra copy will be left on that district server. So the next time you open up a file, you'll pull from the district server as opposed from the main cloud location. But like I said, if the files already exist on your local machine, they're going to use that instead, because it's always going to pick the newest file to open, and the file that's on your local machine will be newer than the one that's on the server. Any files that need to be restored, if you delete some files or a file is corrupt and you need to get it back, yeah, you actually have to go through CADD support now, and we will have to actually go through Bentley to get the file restored. At this point, I'm not sure how they're going to do that. We've done it for the past few years. Chad and I have restored files behind the scenes so that the sets don't get corrupted, so that you can just basically do a replace and it works fine. I'm not sure if Bentley's be willing to do that. So if that's the case, it may be possible or may be necessary that we'll have to run the ref scan tool to get that. Another good feature that we have now when we go to the host environment is that we get the ProjectWise 365. We have nice features in there: deliverables management, issue resolution, PDF markups, some web connections, and some share. This will be available to most of you sometime first quarter next year or second quarter. Right now, it's still being developed on our end. Bentley has their stuff out there. We just, on our end, we have to kind of develop of what we want to do and how we want to address this and how we want to manage this. But we are working on that right now. Some other things about ProjectWise. This new version, the reason why we had to do it was we had to, just for the coordinated universal time, that all the servers are set up to use in most locations now out in the private sector. It does use the connection client, so it's important to make sure that you always log into connection client. Functionality is exactly the same. Everything looks the same when you go in on that Monday, on the 23rd. You may also see a development data source. Right now you have the electronic plans. You may actually see a development data source depending on how we set this up. This allows us to have some possible future collaboration with the district users. So if we may contact you and say, hey, we're trying something, we want you to log into this development environment, you can play around with it and see how it works. And if you see any issues with it, then you'd let us know. Some other things that we're going to be talking about is future connectivity, getting onto the MoDOT network. It allows you to actually connect with ProjectWise off of the MoDOT network. So you would actually kind of go through just your normal internet connection if you're working from home. Also, some possible future archiving data sources that we can take a lot of the projects that we have that we still want to retain, but we just don't want to have them in that location. And we may put them in a different data source that you can get to them at a later point. So some nice features that the host environment offers that the on-premise does not. Some things about the connection client. Like I said before, it's a new licensing method, the way how Bentley is doing this. They're doing it with any new applications that they've developed and upgraded. You're going to have to do this. We are federated with the MoDOT environment. So when you log into your machine onto the MoDOT network, your credentials are being passed along to the Bentley site. And that's why when you actually log into the connection client, you just need your email address. And that's kind of how it's used. If you leave the department and you quit, your email address will no longer work. It's all based off Active Directory at that point. Now, you can see the two images on the left-hand side. If you get these options, that means you are actually connected to the MoDOT environment, MoDOT network. If you get the options onto the right, it shows that you're not on the MoDOT network, but you're trying to access the connection client using like your normal internet service or your internet provider. When you do this, this is what I was saying, how you can actually access the ProjectWise environment using your own services at home. And all you have to do is actually key in your full email address and your network password, and you can sign in, and then you'll get connected to the connection client and actually can call up ProjectWise and actually use ProjectWise at home without being on the MoDOT network. So there's some nice functionalities there that we're going to be looking into. Some things about the Power Geopak SS10, and that's what we rolled out. Like I said, with that, it requires the connection client. If you do not log into the connection client, you just see that little wheel spinning away, and it will not load up. So it will not load if you don't sign into connection client at all. All future applications will be using this way. I think if you use Concept Station, that has that. Any other drainage, some of the new bridge applications that Bridge is getting uses that as well. I don't have a list of the fixes that SS10 actually offers, and I think Kevin may have a list. He may send that out later on or just point to it, but I do not have that. Some other miscellaneous items. We talked about before this, some of the settings that I set up so that it does some caching, and when to save and when not to save, and when not to, or when to update a server copy. So if you're working in a file and you want to keep the changes that you have, but you don't want to replace what's out there on the server, then you just do a normal save. You don't have to do an update server copy. If you wish those changes to be applied to the server so that everybody will get it, then you want to make sure to update the server copy. So that's a real big difference on it. If you work in a file and you work with it for a while and you realize, hey, I don't want to actually save this file because I don't want to corrupt anything, you basically do not save it. And so that ensures that the version that's on the server will be the one that you get next. Now, if by chance you save the file and later on you realize, well, I don't want to have the copy on my local machine, I want the copy on the server on ProjectWise, how do I get that? The only way to do that is if you go into that ProjectWise, right-click on that file, and then purge that local copy. That means it will discard the local copy, and that's the only file it's going to get rid of, and it will pull the newer copy from ProjectWise, or the older copy from ProjectWise, and it will replace that. So it will get the best one that you wanted. The other thing about restoring files, like I said, has to go through Bentley. At this point, I'm not sure right now the exact method on how they will do it. If a file needs to be just replaced, if it's deleted, it's quite easy. They'll just put it somewhere, and we'll figure that out. So that will be addressed a little bit later. Items for projects for construction division. I know a lot of you have been getting requests from construction to get the projects. It's important when you do this, it's a lot easier for us to send the entire project over to construction. If there are folders that you do not want to have included in there, you tell us, say, hey, these miscellaneous folders do not need to be copied out to construction. It's a lot easier for ProjectWise to fix the reference files when we move it over as a whole entire project. So just remember that when you make a request for the PW Access Group to copy a project out to construction. The last thing is just real fast. I talked about this, caching. We're caching on the local machine. When you open up a file, all those files that make up that drawing are cached on your local machine, and they're kept there. So that's important to kind of help with performance and speed for opening the files. Eventually, we're going to have caching servers in the districts again, and that will be kind of handled a little bit differently, in which that if you open up a file, another copy will be pushed onto the server so that if anybody else wants to open that file, they don't have to worry about coming from the host environment. It will go straight from the district caching server to their machine. So that's kind of a nice feature. And that's all I really have for right now. And open up to if anybody has any questions.
Hi. I have a question.
Sure.
My question was, I was following instructions on getting this update with this software center. And at the very bottom, it said use the Geopak cleanup tool. to delete the previous information. So this tool did not work, or
that doesn't work if you have to make sure your T drive is mapped. Sometimes when you restart a machine, that the T drive does not become mapped, and so you have to map to your district server like you always have it. So if for you, it would be KC data WP01 U station. All that cleanup tool, all that really is a shortcut to a script that's on that server. And when you run it, all it does it cleans out, and you'll see a command window that shows up. You'll see some processing trying to end, and you may see some errors, and that's normal. And then it will start a small session of Power Geopak, and it will create a directory structure, and then we push out some preferences that we defined to your local machine. So all your toolboxes look correct. So you have basically the settings that the Geopak people have defined for you. Does that help?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Could you repeat the server?
The server, sure. The server, you'll have to do, when you map a drive, it's 2 backslashes. And since you're in Kansas City, so it's KC data WP01 / U station.
Yes, thank you. I'll tell my group, because I'm sure a lot of people will kind of deal with that.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a quick question, Chris. I know you said not do a purge copies, but after you say you get a project done and ready to start something different, would it be just easy? Would that be a good time to purge things so you have everything opened up more or less?
Yeah, the reason why, we used to always kind of say purge because of the disk space, but the machines nowadays have a larger hard drive, and it's managed a little bit differently. So the disk space is really not the issue, unless you're dealing with projects that have really large TIFF images. That's where I can see an issue. But if you're done with a project and you're not going to work with it anymore, you can purge those files. And like I said, if you open them up later on, they're going to be copied to your local machine anyway. Right now, it's just I'm trying to speed things up during this transition, because the servers that have the files are in the district now. When we do this host environment, those district servers are no longer being used to hold your files. The files are located in the cloud, a really big cloud. The problem is that I'm not sure how the speed is going to affect us, because our speed is kind of governed by OA. So the speed that like I have fiber, it's pretty fast, but I'm still kind of bound by OA's regulation of how much streaming that I get to actually pull. And we're all that way. I mean, no matter how fast your speed is, you're going to have the same speed as everybody else, unless your internet service is really bad. And there are cases and situations that people do have that. But yeah, it's just try to speed things up for you, especially right now in the beginning. And most likely, if you're working on a project now, this week and last week, you probably have all the files that you're working with already on your local machine. So you probably will not be caching at all, if anything, or you won't be getting anything new to be refreshed on your machine. If anything, you're just going to get the files that have changed, and that's what you're going to get when you open up a file. But if you're no longer going to use a file or a project, yes, go ahead and purge that. It doesn't do any good for you. I know that's a long answer, Mike. Sorry.
No worries. I figured there was at least an explanation for that. So
yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
And if you just want to fire an email to me and ask a question, that's fine. If you don't want to do it right now, I understand that.
Thank you, Chris. We'll go ahead and have Kevin present. He's the next one on the list. He's got some stuff to show. Kevin, change role to presenter.
I am now the presenter, it says. Share my content. Go to screen 2. Do you see that, Bill?
It's coming into focus. There it is. Yes.
Okay.
Did you change that setting before you did this?
Oh, you know what? I don't think I did. So let me.
Why don't we try that again? Yeah, try that again.
So share content. There it is.
Yep.
X optimized for motion and video. Thanks, Bill, for catching that for me.
Hey, no problem, man.
Is that coming through now?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So what I have for you today is just an update that that Derek Gray from Bentley gives us on a monthly basis, and most of his recent presentations are about Open Roads Designer and some of the functionality and bug fixes and stuff like that. So I just want to go over some of the enhancements that he just recently showed us, and they're just short little videos that I'm going to kind of show you. And I only picked out 3 of them this time, but maybe next time we'll show a couple more about the Open Roads Designer product. And right now they just released 2020 release 3. They're trying to do a quarterly release every year. Most of the times they don't get that done. Typically it's 2 or 3 releases a year. So we'll go ahead and go to the first slide here. And the first one is a general updates. And on this one, they're talking about something called a dynamic plan view. And this allows for the panning while keeping the alignment or corridor normal to the view. And you can also distort the view, whether it's vertically or horizontally. So he has a little video on this, and I'm gonna mute myself because if I play this video and I've got my audio going, it gives you feedback. So I'm gonna mute and then I'm gonna start the video.
We've added a new tool in this release called Dynamic Plan View. It allows for panning while keeping your alignment or your corridor normal to the view. In addition, it allows both for horizontal and vertical distortion of the view. So here we are on the Home tab of the Open Roads Modeling Workflow, and you'll see we've got a new icon for Dynamic Plan View. You'll be prompted to select an alignment or a corridor. Once you do, you'll be put into a dynamic plan view, and you can use your control key along with your center mouse button to pan along your alignment or corridor. As you do, you'll notice it'll always keep it normal to your view. In addition, let's go to an area here. We've got a little bit more graphics, and this is easier to see. You can also use your control key along with your shift key and your center mouse button to distort the graphics vertically. In addition, you control Alt key along with your center mouse button to allow for longitudinal distortion. When you're done, just click the X icon on the view to dismiss the dynamic plan view and return to a normal view.
Okay, so that was one of the updates, or one of the new enhancements that they have. We'll move on to the next one.
We've added a new tool in this.
Hold on here. Let's go ahead and get past that. The next one is a geometry update. And this one deals with event points. Event points are something new to ORD. And you can actually take those event points and report them to the reports tool. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this video as well.
Another enhancement in this release is to enable the use of event points in our reporting. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with event points, let's take a look at what they are. I'm going to identify my main alignment, and you can see I've created 2 event point lists. The first one for my cardinal points, and the second one for the intersections of my 2 side roads. I've also created an event point list for Jones Street, just identify that alignment, where I've got a culvert crossing. And finally, I've created an event point list for County Road 53, where I've got a second culvert crossing. Now, the enhancement we've made is this. When you go to generate a report now, you'll have the option to include the event points. Notice in this case, I only get two options, none or all. But as soon as I go back and identify the particular alignment that I want to report on, it will read the event point list for that alignment and list them in my dialog. I can choose none, I can choose individual event point list, or I can choose, like in this case, all. So I'm just going to select that option. We'll go ahead and answer the additional prompts for that report. And you'll notice here I've got a report called Event Point List, and it was able to pick up the cardinal points and the intersection points for my main alignment. Now let's go identify a different alignment, in this case, Jones Street. You'll notice this time it actually picks up the culvert location for Jones Street. So it's reading the alignment and listing the event points that you may want to include. So once again, I'll answer the prompts. I'll set the option to all, and you can see it picks up the culvert location in my report. Now in this scenario, I'm going to actually select 3 different alignments. Now in this case, notice you only get none or all. And the reason it does that is because you could have event point lists with the same names on different alignments. So I've selected all, so you can see it picked up cardinal points and intersections for the main line, as well as the culvert locations for the side streets.
Okay, and the last update we're going to share with you is a terrain update. And with this terrain update, it's called TOPO Import. And what you can do with TOPO Import is just directly from an icon, actually go out and get Esri data or even USGS topographical information and create a terrain model out of that information. And right now it's listed as a tech preview, but I believe it's going to definitely end up in the product eventually. And what you can use this for like preliminary design work, or if you have like a bridge survey and you need to get some coverage for your valley sections that are outside, say, the bed area, you can use this topo import for that. So I'm going to go ahead and mute me again and then start the video.
Topo Import, which is a tech preview, was originally introduced in OpenSite Designer in the 2020 R2 release. At that time, it only had support for Esri data. This application has now been enabled in OpenRoads Designer, and at the same time, it's been enhanced to include support for both USGS and SRTM data. So let's take a look at how this works. The first thing we want to do is we need to outline the area that we want to create a terrain for. This can be done with a shape, or it can be done with some type of MicroStation smart line, as we see in the video here. Now, once I've identified my area or created a delineation for it, I'm going to go to the terrain drop-down, and you'll see a new tool for Topo Import. There are 3 options: Esri terrain, which requires a basic Esri account, and then you have the USGS terrain and SRTM terrain, which are both free. So let's take a look at each of these. Let's begin with Esri terrain. You'll notice the first thing it does is requires us to log in with an Esri account. Once we've done that, it'll prompt us to locate an element of the area of interest, and we get the ability to do some type of offset. Once we've decided what we want, we just hit a data point to accept that, and the terrain is built. Now at this point, this is just a standard open roads terrain. You can see we can go over to the properties. In this case, we can turn off the triangles, and we can turn on the major and minor contours. Now let's do the same thing with USGS data. So I'm just going to identify a different area for this. Once I've delineated that, we'll go back to our Topo Import tool, and we'll select USGS terrain. We'll be prompted to locate the element. The data will be read, and it will be created. Now you will notice in this case, though, that the free options don't actually follow the delineation. They just create a rectangular bounding box around that area. Once again, though, these are standard open roads terrains. You can see I can turn off the triangles data and turn on the contours. Finally, let's delineate a third area, and use SRTM data. So I'll just put in something here with my MicroStation tools. We'll go back to our TOPO import tool. In this case, select SRTM. Notice we're going from most accurate, which is Esri, to less accurate, which is USGS, and then as you can see, even the least accurate now with SRTM data. But in all three cases, these are creating standard open roads terrains. Finally, let's look at the ability to create a terrain for an alignment. So in this case, you can see I've got a graphical alignment there. I'm going to select Esri terrain, and you'll notice as we did before, we get the ability to do an offset off of that alignment. Just as before, you can see it follows the contours of that alignment, and it creates a standard open roads terrain. Now, notice the difference with USGS. I'm going to identify the alignment. It reads the data, but once again, the free options will only create a rectangular boundary. Topo import, which
Okay, I'm back. With that topo import, that's a new item, and we still, you can still manually bring in that type of stuff, USGS or even MISDA's data through a point cloud and create a terrain model that way. So this is just a little bit slicker way of creating a terrain model, especially with the USGS data. So with Open Roads Designer, we still kind of have a punch list of things to do that we're still working on before we can push the program out to your district. We're hoping to still do that, hopefully in the first half of 2021. But these are some of the items that we're still dealing with. So the first one is we're still working on a conversion document or a process to convert SS4 or SS10 projects to ORD. We're about 90% done with that. We're just working on a little part of survey data that I'm personally working on with a person from Bentley trying to get this done. So we believe that most projects will stay in SS10. If the project just started, we could probably convert you pretty easily to ORD. So. Printing and PDF creation, we still need to look at that. Chris has kind of been busy with the cloud stuff and SS10 push and a couple other things. So
just a little.
He'll be working on that very shortly here. So there's something called sheet indexing. It's a kind of a function of it kind of organizes the order of the sheets and can also create a sheet index. But there is a bug with that on the ProjectWise side, and we're still working with Bentley on that bug. Reports, this has just been updated in the latest release that just came out. We can actually now store the reports where we want the reports to be stored, and also they actually work in ProjectWise now. So the labeler tool, back with the new ORD labeler tool. There is a basic labeler tool that Chad has tried to set up to have as much functionality as the previous one, but it's just not there. And Bentley has recognized the shortcomings of this tool, so they're actually have a new labeler tool that they're actually getting input from all the states, DOTs. And that one's probably not going to be out for a few more releases, but at least there's hope on that labeler tool. We're also working on a non-ProjectWise workspace, because once we go to ORD, our workspace will be in ProjectWise. And so we used to store our workspace on the T drive, and we will not be utilizing that workspace for ORD on the T drive anymore. So we have to create a non-ProjectWise workspace for the consultants. When we give them projects to work on, they'll have a workspace to use. And then bugs, we've got quite a few bugs out there in ORD. I think there are over 30 bugs. I would say 10 of them are ones that we would like them to fix, but we're still waiting for those bugs to be fixed. So with that, Bill, I think I'm done with my presentation. I'll give it back to you.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. To mine. And let's see, that was Chris. Kevin did all that stuff. Let me see. That brings us to the end of this meeting. Anybody got any questions over anything covered by Chris or Kevin or Derek Gray? I mean, I can't call Derek Gray, but we can probably come up with an answer. Right, Kevin?
Sounds good. Sounds good, Bill.
Any questions? Anything going on? Major show stopping? Anything for you guys? Okay, just keep in mind how you can get a hold of us. You can do it through our phone numbers, again, or our Microsoft Teams. Either way, email, phone number, Microsoft Team, give us a yell, and we'll get out and help you. That's all I got for this meeting. I'll see you guys December, whatever day that was, 17th, I think. Yeah.
Sounds good, Bill. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'm going to stop recording.